What do you get when you combine a warrior, a survivor of an attempt on his life, and a spiritual seeker? In a fascinating twist along this Miles to Zen journey, Lance Gibson appeared on my path. This episode is a story that sounds more like a movie, but every bit is real. Welcome to the Miles to Zen podcast. Conversations shaped by curiosity, creativity, and connection. I'm your host, Shannon Miles Halliday, and this show is where we explore new possibilities and embrace the wild, beautiful, ever unfolding adventure of being human. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Miles to Zen podcast. I'm so glad you found us today. Today's guest is someone who really embodies what I think Miles to Zen is all about. And it's not the absence of struggle, but the wisdom that comes from walking straight through it. Lance Fearless Gibson Sr. is a Canadian MMA pioneer, a former UFC fighter, world-class coach, actor, stunt performer, and a mentor. And I think that those titles barely scratch the surface of who he is. I'm so excited to have Lance with us today. And we're going to get into a little bit of what has formed him into he is today, but to just briefly mention, 35 years ago, he almost lost his life when an attempt on his life left him partially paralyzed, shattered his dreams of bodybuilding, closed his training business, sent him into many, many years of rehabilitation, legal battles, PTSD, anger, mistrust, and he's faced the kind of inner fights that most people just don't have the courage to talk about. And instead of letting that define him, Lance transformed it. He went on to fight in the UFC, becoming the #1 ranked Shooto fighter in the world. He's appeared in major films like X-Men, The Last Stand, and built a successful business and raised a family with fighters alongside his wife, who's a Bellator champion, Julia Budd, and his son, UFC fighter Lance Gibson Jr. And today, Lance, through Gibson MMA and his coaching work and his spiritual work, he helps elite athletes transform every day. And I just can't wait to launch into our discussion. So, Lance, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Oh, I'm excited too, Shannon. Thanks for having me. And thank you for the introduction. Wow, I haven't heard all that before. Yeah.
Well, you are such an inspiration. And the fact that you've been on this journey and you continue to go on that journey and guiding other people through what you've learned. And for anyone watching this on YouTube, my cat has decided to show up and he wouldn't be left out of this discussion. So if you see a tail walking by, or some interruption of some sort, he insisted on participating. So, Lance, was there anything I missed there in an intro that you wanted to say?
No, you hit it right on the nail. I sometimes don't think about some of the things I've done in the past, and I just kind of move on. And then sometimes I have to sit back and I go, and when somebody says it, I go, "Oh my God, I actually have done that stuff." I just kind of stay on the path and look forward. And so it's nice to hear sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's amazing when we look backwards at what we've done and you can sit with it and see, yeah, I did stuff. I did do things. And often when you're so busy looking forward and you feel that you've got a lot to do, or you feel you've got a lot that you want to accomplish, just remembering to check in to see how far you've come.
Yeah, exactly.
Is huge. So I can't wait to talk to you about how you help other people get there. But before we do, I wanted to actually briefly mention how it is that we're talking today, because I gotta say, never in a million years did I think I would be interviewing a mixed martial artist, former champion, pioneer. But we're talking today because I met a few of your friends from high school on a recent trip to Hawaii where I was doing self-guided spiritual and writing retreat. And I was going to these various spots that are, spiritually kind of renowned spots in Maui. And I came across two of your friends from high school there just randomly. And they said, you've got to talk to Lance.
That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And so I thought this is meant to be. And so why do you bring us back to that kid who grew up in the lower mainland of British Columbia and maybe even before high school? What was that kid like?
Well, I'll go back to elementary because that's when I met Kyle, who actually talked to you in Hawaii. I was a loved child. It was during a time out in Coquitlam when there was not many people that actually looked like me. So my mom is Jamaican, my dad is Scottish. And we moved into a somewhat middle class neighborhood in Coquitlam, where we were just making it. We were just getting it. We were just trying to. My mom and dad did their best to do everything for us and to get into a great neighborhood. And it was great memories. I met a lot of great people, but there was also a lot of hardships that built me who I was because, like I said, there wasn't people that looked like me, so there wasn't many black kids around. So I've seen it all, and I've had to deal with it. But my dad instilled in me, and my mom, they're both fighters. They instilled in me a sense of pride and a sense of nobody could hold me back. And I was always smaller than everybody too. So being small and being a minority, I had to fight. And it was just interesting because Kyle could tell you stories, but I was always fighting, always having to defend myself. And then eventually it got to the point where I actually liked fighting. It's like, I actually liked this. And I was an athlete and I went through sports and I raced BMX bikes. I played soccer on all the select teams. I did all this kind of stuff, but I had that fight in me always. And it's interesting how that transformed into my life as I started making a living as a professional fighter. This was meant obviously to happen when I hit Earth, and it was like I was in early training at a young age to do what I did in my career, because that was training for me mentally, physically, and spiritually at that point. And my parents were just the best.
So you were getting in fights in the playground, and I'm assuming you may or may not have started them, but you certainly finished them.
Yeah, no, I've never started a fight ever. I never started a fight, but I never backed down.
Right.
And I always was taught to stand up for people who couldn't defend themselves as well. So I was never a guy who would start a fight, but I would finish it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say about my son in preschool. He'd never start one, but he'd certainly finish it. He's a big kid. He's a lover, not a fighter. But as a little guy, he'd get so upset when somebody pushed him around. And then, 5 minutes later, after the tears and the anger, and then that kid was on the ground, unfortunately. So what did your mom and dad say when you came home all beat up?
Well, you know what? Thank God my dad had taught me martial arts like Kung Fu and Judo at a young age. And I had an older brother who used to beat me up all the time. So it got me
handy that way, aren't they?
Yeah, right. And I didn't get beat up. Unfortunately, thank God.
Okay.
But and my mom and dad raised me right where they always knew that I wasn't picking the fight. So when I get home and I call my mom and say I sent home from school, she just said, "Did you win?" I go, "Yes."
Wow.
Yeah, because they knew I would never start anything. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then so through that, you started getting into bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
And was that in high school you started doing that? Or?
Yeah, my dad always lifted weights, my brother. So I remember weights being in the house always. My mom exercised too. So it was like, we had pictures of bodybuilders all over the walls down in the basement. And I was just like looking at these things like, one day, and then they were like, no, you're too little right now. You can't lift the weights. And they had me little baby weights. And I was just like, I couldn't wait for the day that I could lift weights. And then as I got into high school, it was just full on, all my lunch hours, all my breaks. And then I was a wrestler as well. So I got into wrestling. And then, so I was always aware of my diet, and you couldn't keep me out of the gym. And I thought, oh, I'm going to own a bodybuilding gym one day. I'm going to be a world-class bodybuilder. I'm going to do this and that. And yeah, and then universe kind of told me something a little different as time went on in my life.
Yeah. So then let's go there if you're okay. When did you start getting those messages? Was that all at once when you had the attack on your life, or?
Yeah. So what happened was, I think at the age of 18, I was one of the top black stunt men in all of Canada. I was making pretty good money at 18, 19, working on shows like 21 Jump Street and MacGyver and all those things. And I was
My faves.
all right. It was such good memories. And I had my stunt career there. And then I had my personal training business at that time as well. And then I'm trained to be a bodybuilder. And I remember, and I was going to school. Then I started college. I was doing general business administration. And I had a whole business plan on opening a gym, bodybuilding
We're
gym.
busy.
Yeah, I had all that. And then one day coming home, well, it's a longer story. I don't want to get all into it. But one time I was at a car wash on the weekend, and I got into altercation with this, it was a racist fellow. And he attacked me, and I defended myself. And that was kind of the end of it. And then never really thought about it again. He started it, and I defended myself, and that was it. And then I'd say probably 3 or 4 months later, I was coming home from college, and I was at a stop sign at the bottom of a hill. And all I saw was, I looked in my rearview mirror and I saw a 1-ton moving truck, probably going about 80 miles an hour. And then I looked in my mirror and I looked back, and I went crashing through the intersection, through a brick wall, into the front door of a house. And then I continued to get rammed by the truck. And I was like, what is going on here? Right. And as I had a Volkswagen Bug, and thank God that the Bug had the engine in the back, because that's what actually saved me. The whole front was smushed, and I jumped out the window eventually because it had stopped crashing into me. And I looked and I saw it was the same fellow who attacked me originally. I was like, he put it in reverse, got away. And then I remember a lady came down the street. She was in a gray Volvo. I remember exactly. And she goes, I saw him chasing you. I didn't see him hit you, but I saw him chasing you. What happened? And she called the cops, and I was kind of in shock. And that day changed my life. In the terms of also, so my dad had came home, the police were called, and this and that. And he was charged, but not charged with what he should have been charged with. And I felt at that time, at that time, we went to doctors. I had numerous injuries, and my body curve wasn't looking good. I had nerve damage. So he partially paralyzed my serratus anterior and severed my long thoracic nerve. So the pain was excruciating, but it made me asymmetrical. So my bodybuilding curve is over, because you have to be, it's about symmetry in bodybuilding. And that was about, that went on for a long time. But I remember we went to the courthouse for him to get charged. And there's another officer in there, from Port Moody officer, said, he goes, he should have been charged with attempted murder, not dangerous driving. Dangerous driving, yeah, across the middle of the line.
Right, like ramming you multiple times would have been a little bit more than dangerous driving. So
it was kind of growing up, being as I was, and some of the treatment you get back then, a lot of people were great, some people were not so great. And it put a feeling into me about my life's not worth much, meaning people, they don't think my life's worth much. The police officer didn't, obviously, because he's charged with dangerous driving. And this other officer had said it as well. And it was that was a battle for me mentally as well, because it was like the world's against me,
Well, and life isn't fair.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember living in my parents' basement and rebuilding myself. And I actually didn't really go out in public anymore. I stopped acting for a long time. And then when, you know, insurance companies get into it, they don't want to pay out because I had a really serious claim. So they started tarnishing my name in all my industries because they didn't want to pay me out. And I had hired a really good lawyer, Laura McGee, and she was one of the top female lawyers out there. So they didn't like her either. But they went after me personally. So they went after me to discredit my name and ruin my name. So they actually went through the stunt community and said, don't hire him because he'll sue you. So then I was like, this is my career I just had. And you've tried to ruin me. And then they did everything they could. And
wow.
Long story short, the stories I could tell you about just being in court, the judge saw the head in there and he was acting up in court, trying to egg me on just to try to make me look like I'm the animal. And the judge caught on to him and kicked him out. And they had brought ex-girlfriends in. They brought people I never even knew in to testify against me. Took them out for steak dinners, did all these kind of things because my case was so big and they didn't like my lawyer as well. And I ended up winning in the long run, and I got a public apology from the judge. But, you know, 7 years of my life is not worth the money that I got.
Right. And that anguish. And I imagine your brain was probably doing a lot of loops through those 7 years. I had a 2-year case, and just how stressful that was.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't even go to court, but that stress. So I can't imagine having a serious injury and going on for 7 years.
Yeah.
And with them actively targeting you.
Actively. I had 7 different private investigators on me throughout the 7 years. I caught a couple of times. They would follow me. I would catch them and take their license plate number, give it to my lawyer, and they'd find out. They would go around places with pictures of me. So it was just not a sense of paranoia, but yes, there was, because it was like I didn't trust anybody at that point. I didn't go out much. I tried to rebuild my body physically and spiritually. And I remade myself. And I realized I couldn't be a bodybuilder. It's not going to happen. I started I go, if they're not going to hire me as a stunt guy, I know what I'm going to do. I just kind of refocused and redirected the battle strategy about my life. And I said, okay, well, I'm a fighter. I've always been a fighter. I'm going to get back into the martial arts again and not focus on the bodybuilding. You don't want to hire me as a stunt man? Well, I know how to I know how to fix this problem. I went back into acting and did theater, and I got all my acting skills back. And I did a conservatory and lead a play down in Seattle, and came back, and I would get the acting part. And then I say, well, I'm doing my own stunts. So I could beat them out without them trying my tarnished name. And they couldn't beat me. And then I started professionally fighting in this sport that everybody thought was a little bit barbaric and this and that. You'll never do anything with this sport. This sport will never go anywhere. It's illegal and this and that. And I just go, I'm doing it for the love of it. I'm a fighter, and I'm going to prove that I can do what I can do. And it's funny because everybody had told me you would go do nothing with this. This sport has showed me so much in the world. I've seen the world 4 times over. I've done the biggest movies with the biggest martial art stars, and I've helped thousands of people over the years, you know, just with confidence and discipline. And it's been so giving. And it wasn't an accident when he tried to kill me. That was supposed to happen, because the universe wanted to direct me where I needed to go. And I see it now. And I'm grateful for the whole experience now.
Yeah. So you had, and I think this is so important, you had that shift out of being a victim. And that's when all the healing then started to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. You know, it's funny when you're going through it, you're like, why me? Why me? But now I look back and I go, huh. And it's like when you tell these stories and then you bring it back up, it's like, oh yeah, that happened. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I've had many of these kind of situations happen over the years, even within my own business, and similar, just out of the wall stories that you could put it on a crime drama and make a blockbuster movie out of this stuff. And you would never think a martial art instructor would go through this, or a business owner would go through this stuff. And I was just like, but it always, when it happens, you're, why me? But then later on, there's always a reason for it. There's always a reason for it. And now I'm starting to look at life differently, meaning I'm like, obviously I don't want a lot of bad things to happen, but I take them on straightforward and look what the gems are in it, instead of just like, why, poor me, poor me.
Yeah. 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 You're not denying reality.
Yes.
And that's amazing. It's so, did you, because I've talked to a rapid transformation therapist on the podcast before, Monica Chignell, and her and I did some work of going back to past experiences and taking that emotional charge out of it. So then when you look back at it, you just don't have that angst and that anger and the hurt that was there before. And when I did that work with her, I almost wondered, we were talking about small things, but why was I so upset about that? When I look back at it, it's because I did the work to take the emotional charge out. And it sounds like that's exactly what you've done.
Yeah. And I use it as motivation too. So I did take it out, and over time I got much more mature and I took it out, but I also I used the anger as motivation and fire. And,
Right.
and it was like, it's like, all my life, I've always seen the phoenix rising from the fire. And anytime something happens, I just know it just molds me to be even stronger. And even as a little boy, so I kind of was I used that anger and channeled it into something good.
Yeah, that is amazing. And so then you've re-entered into acting, stunt work, and then, like, I just love this story of your life. You've got so many things that then you built upon. And so why is it, for people who don't know, we're not familiar with the sport, why is it that you were called the pioneer of mixed martial art?
In Canada, because I started at a time where it was legal, semi-illegal, and there was no weight divisions. There was 30-minute rounds. There's no time limits, and it was just, they promoted it as just gladiators. And I know I was a gladiator in another life, and I'm a gladiator in this life as well. And it was just suited me. And so it was like, it just resonated with my soul, and I knew it was something that I wanted to go towards, even though there was no riches involved in it, meaning financially. Like, boxing's been around for forever, and they've had sanctions and unions and stuff like that. So boxers make a lot of money. MMA fighters don't. Now,
And you're saying that there is no categories. So here you are at, I think you're 5'9"-ish,
yeah.
and fighting against much bigger guys, perhaps.
Oh yeah, big guys, 280 pounds, 6'4". It didn't matter who you were fighting. It was just a big guy, but it was like, it's different than the fighters now. It was a different era where I was just like, I am a gladiator and I'm on this earth, and I'm going to go to another country and fight another gladiator. And it was just the thrill of the fight back then.
Yeah. So it's like you embodied that gladiator as your mindset.
Yes. Yeah.
And so were you afraid going into the ring with these guys, or any times in your life have you been afraid? I'm guessing, going back to that attempt on your life would have scared you, but any other times?
It's funny. I don't know if I've ever been afraid. I feel anxious maybe before a fight. Like, I want to get in there. I want to get to war. I had a different mentality. It wasn't fear. It was just almost anxiety to get in there and get to it. So the waiting was more of anxiety, but not a fear. I've never had a fear, and I think the fear left me as a child when I was constantly having to defend myself and deal with situations. And then when this happened to me, the attempt on my life and everything happened, it was like, what? It went through a period of time where I didn't really care if I lived or died. I didn't. There was a time where I was kind of in the in between, where I was like, honestly, I probably may put myself in predicaments where I'd almost die and didn't really care. So I didn't have the lust a lot to live because these people didn't really care about my life. They didn't charge them or protect me or anything. So I was in the in between for a lot of years there too, till I figured myself out.
And so what were some of the things that helped you move on from that in-between space?
The love of my family, my mom and dad, they were fantastic. They're fantastic, and sports, the martial arts, because it just brings the whole mind, body, spirit right together. So it's just those are the things that kind of kept me. It was I have to say, my mom and dad for sure. You know, yeah,
Yeah, well, they certainly sounded like very sportive rocks.
yeah, absolutely. Very good role models, very supportive, lots of love, fantastic.
And so when did you get that? You've talked about that rising, that Phoenix rising, Gladiator. Where did that come from? Where did those images start to come in and be part of who you are?
I think I was not silently taught it, but I've been watching my mom and dad go through things and in their life, just think about what at the time when you look back in 1967, it was illegal for a black person and a white person to be married in the States. So they lived in Canada, but doesn't mean it stops at the border, right? So down in the US, you're watching this on the news and stuff, and then I think it was 1965 because that's when my brother was born. It was the swimming pools was 1967, I believe. We could swim in the swimming pool. It's just great. It boggles my mind to even talk about. It's like, really? Why would you do this to another human being? But you know, it's just watching and that it's in my blood.
Lance is talking about the reality of 1967, and that was in a period called the Long Hot Summer, where there was riots across dozens of cities, I think like 150 riots, as people protested segregation and inequality. And at the same time, Black Americans, interracial families like Lance's parents, were still facing discrimination in everyday places like the public swimming pool, where they could be segregated or unwelcoming or simply closed down so they didn't have to welcome non-white people to the pool.
I think it's in my blood and the spirit of my mom and dad. So it just they never stopped. So it just instilled it in me. And it's like it wasn't just one time I need to pull out the Phoenix. It's been numerous times in my life, but these have been the pivotal points of my life to be able to head me to where I'm at today.
So then talk to talk to us about when you then started coaching others and you were developing your business, and what did that look like? Were you still doing the acting and the stunts at the same time?
Yes, I actually. So then I had my son Lance Jr. with his mom in Seattle. I had met her in Seattle. So I was kind of going back and forth, and that's where I was doing my theater program and doing my conservatory, but I couldn't work in the States because I wasn't American, even though I had Junior. So I had to travel back for auditions. And I ended up walking into a it's funny because I kept calling this one martial arts school because I'm doing the theater and it would never answer the phone. I'm like, this is the weirdest thing ever. I'm like, I go by there and they're never open, never open. I wasn't meant to go there, obviously, because then I met this other guy who goes, well, check this place. It's about an hour and a half away from you, but try them out. So I ended up going to the school, and my instructor there was one of the best people in all of North America and around the world. He was fighting Japan. And it was an hour and a half away from myself in Seattle. So I had to drive to Kirkland in traffic. And I remember having Junior as a baby in a car seat and his brother and sister, who I'm their father too as well. I've taken care of them all their life. And I had them all on the couch with like fruit snacks, and I'm going in there and sparring. And then I'd pick them up and take them home. And every day they were in the gym with me. And it was just, they talk about it now, the memories about it and the greatest memories, but it was like, and they're such successful kids, all of them. And I'm so proud of them. And Junior's followed in my footsteps. As you can see, he's fighting in the UFC. He's done movies as well. So it's just to watch my son, and he's been a baby, watch me the whole time. And it was just interesting. And then it got to the point where like I couldn't keep going back and forth. I wasn't making any money in America. So I was just hoping to get an acting job here. And I said, I got to get back home and I got to open a gym because I can't keep coming back and training here and then going back. It's just not feasible. So then I was on a movie, Rumble in the Bronx with Jackie Chan. And I had met a friend on there and we became good friends and we had business partners and we started a business back in 97, our martial arts school. And then one thing after another, I started fighting in these tournaments in Hawaii and Super Brawl. And my gym just started getting bigger and bigger. And we were the first kind of gym around like this. Everything was kind of like karate or taekwondo. And I was a mixture of everything. Anything that works, I'll teach. And I accepted everybody. We didn't wear the kimono or a gi. We wore more modern, like shorts and a shirt, but military style, but disciplined. But we were different than everybody else. And everybody's kind of like, who are these guys? And it was like a new era of mixed martial arts. And that's how it started for me. And opening my business there. And I was doing movies before and continued during, and everything just kind of kept evolving. I learned a lot because I had a business partner for 2 years, I believe. And then it just never balanced out. He was young and I was young and I went to school for business. I'm a guy that gets things done, and it always doesn't work out with partners. But funny, he came back into my life just 5 years ago. So everybody has a bad kind of breakup or whatever. And we kind of never talked, and it was bitterness all those years. And he came back and he said, I was young back then. I didn't really understand, but I want to be in your life again. I said, yeah, man. So we're friends again. And after like 25 years, it's kind of funny.
Oh, that's called growing up, huh?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but doing more than that, that's choosing to elevate yourself and become a better person, because that would have been weighing him down, I can imagine.
Yeah. It definitely took. I caught on to, because business and business enemies and all these kind of things, and it's so ridiculous. You should just focus on yourself. But being young, people focus on more on what you're doing instead of you're doing. And there was a lot of different horrible things that would go on. And it's like, I remember when I finally detached myself from all that and caring was when my dad was diagnosed with cancer and the fight was on. This was my fight. And I remember I put every ounce, every dime, anything into any kind of healing for my father. And I remember getting up and we're driving down at 5:30 in the morning to the hospital for another treatment. And I'm thinking to myself, none of this matters in life, that what people think or what you're doing. I have my dad, and I'm grateful to even have him in the car at 5:30 in the morning. We go down there. I'm tired. He's tired. But why am I? And I just kind of one day said, they don't exist anymore. This doesn't exist. That kind of frequency doesn't exist anymore to me. And I let it go. And it was just like a matter of a day. I let it all go. And it was like, and I released it. I released it. I didn't have to, I forgave myself and I forgave the person for the situation, but didn't mean I have to be in their life. And I just let it all go. And it was like, oh, the weight that came off me, I couldn't even believe it.
Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves.
Yeah, it is.
It's really, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So then tell me a little bit about some of the things you learned about yourself walking beside your dad through this tough journey of his.
I learned that now when I'm looking back, I can't control a situation, but I can live in the moment and be present. I was living under so much stress because I wanted him to be okay so bad that I would try to do anything, heal him with my hands, through my mind, through my spirit. I took him everywhere, and it was like, it was so much on me that I started self-medicating, meaning I started drinking alcohol because it was like, I'm a fighter. My body's beat up. I'm not fighting anymore. Now I have this business now. I have this business running. I have multiple businesses. I bought a commercial property. Thank God I was smart enough to do that. And I'm running all these businesses. And then my best friend, now they give him a sentence of 6 months to live. And I'm like, I'm in shock, in panic mode. And it wasn't like I drank a lot, but I drank consistently, and it dulled my spirit, and it dulled who I was as a person. And it was just making me unhealthy spiritually, mentally, and physically. It fogged me. And the pain of that, I went through a lot of it. And even my dad, they gave him 6 months. And my dad lasted 8 years. And that was
Wow.
due to love and Eastern way and Western way together, medicine, and just pouring everything into him. And when he passed, I still didn't get the memo. I wasn't taking care of myself because I was always constantly taking care of everybody else, making sure. Now I got my mom. I don't want her to pass. It was just a whole thing of, and I understand the other side. I get it. I totally do. I've had mediums in my life since I was 18. So I get it. But when it comes to your loved one, your best friend, it's like, why, And it's interesting that after that, and I think it was the biggest change came when COVID hit. And I had just lost my dad before that. And then I had my mom, and I was like, oh God, I can't lose my mom. I wanted to protect her, whatever. And then they shut down my type of business, the health industry. They shut it down. But things next door, and I know it's a real thing. And I was full on board trying to be the citizen to make sure that everybody's following the rules, but you didn't take care of us. You didn't take care of us. You just handed us money that we had to pay back. And we went to war and tried to help and make everybody safe. And you just didn't take care of our businesses, and a lot of people lost their stuff. And I owned the building I was in. So I was like, this is my life my investment, and I'm going to lose. You guys aren't helping me. So it was like, I had to start changing up, and I had to change up everything. And you saw the darkness side of a lot of people that you even actually deal with and teach. And I was just like, this is not what life's about. This is not the frequency I want to be on. I have to change because, right. And I was still medicating and helping my sorrows and my grief and my pain and my stress. Yeah. Is like, my only painkiller was a tequila at night. Yeah. And it was like, I was like, this has got to stop. And I rented out my commercial unit and got a small gym. And I finally started teaching people that I wanted to teach. I mean, you don't have to be a superstar. You just be a good human being. I'll take you. But if you're not, I'm not taking you, because it brought out the side of everybody in the world. Right. Right. So it regained itself, and I started regaining myself. And then I remember my wife, I'm her manager as well. And I've negotiated a lot of contracts over the years. And I'm known in the business as a pretty good negotiator. And there's a lot of, and for my wife and son, I've done very well for them. And when they negotiate, I remember one deal didn't go, I was dealing with a different company this time, and it didn't go right in the fact that they didn't stand up to what they were supposed to do. So I tried to hold them accountable to it, and they tarnished my name, and they lied, and they pretty much took my wife's career away from her and then blamed me. And I was sitting here going, no, you guys didn't follow what you said you were going to do. No. And they blacklisted me and my wife overnight, from her making $1 million contracts to $0. Wow. And that took her soul. And all I want to do is make my family happy. So it was like,
and protect your family.
Protect my family. And now she's out of work and hurt and really didn't have a piece of it because I'm the negotiator. And it's 9 times out of 10, I've done fantastic. And this one went wrong, and they turned on me and said it was me when it wasn't me. And I'm like, hello guys, it wasn't me. And it was hard when you lose something. It's hard to, and so it was a toll on the family, a toll on my name, toll on me, that I don't know if I would have survived. I don't know. It was a point where I probably would have had a heart attack at that point. And it was either life or death that I had to make a change. I mean, spiritually make a change and change me as a person. Because if I didn't, I don't think I'd be here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it's that lesson that you'd learned before, where people were not being fair and not being trustworthy, and then you got it again
Yeah.
in another way.
Big time.
And it was like, wow, you're probably thinking, I did so much work to remove that, and here it showed up again.
Yeah.
And so what happened then?
It was a dark time for my family and a dark time for me. And I felt there was nothing I could do. There was not anybody I could talk to. Because I'm generally the person who counsels and helps people. So it's like, there's somebody I couldn't talk to because I felt I needed a higher power. I needed somebody who's been through what I've done and came out of it. And I couldn't find anybody like that and who could resonate with me. And I just said, you know what? I've always been into metaphysical and had mediums, and I've done sweat lodges with the indigenous as well. But I've always wanted to go to and do ayahuasca in Peru with the indigenous. And after my first sweat lodge, like 13 years before, I said, I'm going to go and do that one day. And it took me 13 years. That was a calling at that point, but I never acted on it. This was life or death situation. And I got my last bit of money together, and my wife said, you're going. And I booked a trip to Peru. I've never traveled on myself. I don't know how to even order anything off Amazon. I'm not that kind of guy. Those are the things my wife and my son do for me. And she said, you're going. And I was like, okay, I'm going. And then it's like, okay, we're going to book it. Okay. Oh, hold on. Wait another day. She's, no, you're booking it now. And I'm like, okay, I'm booking it. I said, I don't even know how to get on this plane to go to this place. Nobody speaks English. What am I going to do? It was the best thing I could ever done for myself. But it was funny because on the way there, I got my flight. I got on the flight. We're going to Dallas, and the plane mid-flight turns around. They said a laptop fell down the side and exploded, and the plane had to turn around. So I'm like, okay. So they dropped us in Dallas, and I'm there, and then they ship us off to a hotel overnight. And then I come back the next day, and they don't have me on the plane to Peru. And I don't know how to do anything. So I am calling my wife and telling her, can you figure out? She's arguing with the people. So they finally get me a seat. It's a middle seat. And I'm like, I'm a big dude. I can't sit in the middle seat. I had a first class seat the first time. And then they were like, well, you can't do this and that. So she argued. We finally got there. So we got on the flight, ready on the tarmac, ready to go. An hour goes by. 2 hours goes by. 3 hours goes by. Off the plane again. Wow. And I'm like, this is the weirdest thing ever. So I'm like, ship it off to a hotel again. So then we get on the next flight. The next day, we get up in the air. We're flying to Peru. We end up there. We end up in the morning and waiting. My bags don't come out. So I'm like, this is okay. What is going? Maybe I'm not meant to go on this thing, I'm thinking. But so we wait. We get there. My bags don't show up. I had 3 days I didn't have my bags. And if you know anything about Peru, there's not that many guys my size walking around, an athlete. So I went to a local store to try to get some clothes, and there was nothing that fit me. I had some skin tight clothes on. I went for dinner. And I remember sitting on the edge of the cliff, angry. I got no clothes. I just can't believe the trip's going this way. And then I see the sunset come down, and I look at the beautiful sunset. I go, what are you complaining about? And that was just like, it just kind of opened my portal. And then after that, we went up the mountain. We were at the top of Sacred Valley, and it was just magical, unbelievable. And the journeys, the shaman and the Shipibo tribe, they ran the whole thing, and we were in a beautiful resort on the top of, in this middle of the Sacred Valley above the clouds. And it was just a place that I needed to heal. Yeah. And there was it was 12 people in the circle with the elders as the shaman. And my first journey, I got everything I needed. It was just, and sometimes they say that's unheard of, but I got everything I needed. I got it like that. And then it was like what I saw and what I experienced and what I saw during my journeys was amazing the first night. And I remember calling home midnight and got my wife and my son on the phone, and I said, I'm sorry. And they go, you're sorry? You never say you're sorry. And I'm like, because I'm the kind of guy, I do it out of action. I love out of action. And I go, I haven't been present. I'm sorry. I said, and it was like, they couldn't believe it. And they were like, oh, it just released everything. From that day on, the three more journeys were just icing on the cake. It just broke down more and more layers. And then I stayed for an extra 10 days and just went and saw Machu Picchu and all the spiritual places. And it was just, I began my new life and the final step of my spiritual journey. And it brought me back. It brought Lance back. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And for people who aren't familiar with what a journey is, can you just give sort of just some small insight into what actually happens when you go on a journey? And then how did that transform you when you came home?
So when you go on a journey, it's very important because this is a sacred medicine, and it's important that the space is safe, that you have people that actually can. This is not something you just do. It's a medicine, and it's an ancient medicine. It's helped many generations around the world. And when you do it, it's a black liquid, and it's from two roots in the Amazon. And obviously, how they figured this out, I don't know. And because the root is just, you got thousands and millions of plants there, and they figured this concoction can release the DMT and all that, and on a longer stand. And we do a lot of self work too. So with the Mayans and the Shipibo and the Inca, they deal with community health, mental health over anything. So that's their number one thing. They want everybody in the community mentally healthy and feeling good and not broken. And that's the way their communities that work, they totally work at it. Everything they do there makes sense. So you show up and there's 12 individuals. And I know that this isn't a coincidence. I'm going to meet these 12 individuals. We've had this agreement on the other side for sure. And you show and you see all these individuals, you don't know anybody, but then everybody's story, you talk about what your why is and why you're here. And everybody's story has a connection, no matter where in the world. And these people are from all over the world, Romania to Bangladesh to Iowa to Montreal to just everywhere. And then you get down in this circle and you start talking about your issues, your problems, and what your intentions are when you're there and what you want to do to heal. So then the shaman, it's translated for them, the maestros, him and his wife. They were a couple and they're very powerful and done this since they were children. You're almost born into being this. And they listen to what your stories are, and they can see your auras and see what you kind of need and stuff as well. You come out about 7 p.m., you get there and there's a circle and they line up and you come around and you go up there with your intentions and they bless you, and it's a little shot glass of this brew they make from the two plants, which is the ayahuasca brew. And you drink it. It tastes like prune juice and a little bit of dirt together, really. I can't even drink prune juice now that I taste that, because it's like, oh, but it's not the greatest taste, but you get it down. It's not, it's just funny. I can taste it as I can speak about it. And you take your journey and you go back to your beds, and the lights are off and the candles, and they start singing their Icaros. And they start singing and they guide you. Their songs are so beautiful, and there are no instruments, and there's just their voices. And it's masculine and feminine. So it's the wife and the husband, and they go around the room and give you each an individual song. And her voice resonates and his voice resonates, and it's so powerful. This space is protected. And then you drink it, and it takes about 20 minutes to a half hour to kick in. And you're not drunk, you're coherent. But you close your eyes, you go to a different dimension. And I kind of saw shapes and geometry at first, and then certain colors, and then drumming. And then I would go into a vision of an indigenous man drumming, but when I close my eyes, when I open my eyes, I'm here. And then I go into it, and then you kind of shocked, you get out of it, and then he goes, don't fight it. You go back into it. And when you go back into the visions, it's just, you're going into a portal of past lives, future lives. the life in between, lessons you need to learn, what your intentions are. And it's like you open a door and you go here and you resolve this problem that you've had for 20 years, like in 2 seconds. You're like, oh, I get it. Oh, okay. Moving on to the next one. Oh, and if you don't get it, for me, this is how my experience was. I went into my wife and my son's body, and they saw that I thought that I was working so hard and I'm doing all these great things for them, but all they wanted me to do is be present, you know? And I was showing my love with all the work I was doing. I'm like, well, what did you know? But I wasn't present. I was kind of, I was angry. I lost my dad and I'm hurting and COVID shut me down and this and that. And it was just like, I went into their body and felt their feelings and I bawled my eyes out for an hour during it. And it was like, I get it. Get it. And then I went into another playful thing where I was playing with one of my grandkids and I was laughing for an hour. It's such a special medicine for certain people.
Yeah.
If you're ready and willing. It is almost and people have said it before, but it is 30 years of counseling in one journey,
But
and
it sounds like it's pretty important to know that you don't do that in your living room by yourself.
never, I hear people talk about it and stuff, and I'm like, first of all, you don't know what you're getting. Second of all, you need somebody who's a professional. This is an ancient medicine. You need somebody to, and I mean, don't go to these commercial places, like these big commercial places that have 60, 70 people doing the whole thing. I don't think that's even good. I think a setting of 12 people with the proper counseling, there's psychologists there as well. There's doctors, they're checking you out. There's a very important diet you have to do a month before. It's a people diet, no sugar, no dairy, none of that stuff, no alcohol. So your spirit's clean.
Huh.
And it's very important you go to the right place because you can be left seeing things that you don't really understand, and then you can be lost too as well. So it has to be done by a professional, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And then, so you've spoken with mediums, you've been kind of in touch spiritually since you were 18. Now you get this. And now, how does everything get integrated when you come home?
Yeah, I think the harder the journey, the better it is. So I want to go through the crying. I want to go through the pain because that's what you need to do to get release it. Some people see it differently, but that's the way I want it. When I hear a person beside me crying, I'm like, oh, that person's so lucky, because they're going through it, but they're going to be better after.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I was elevated. It felt like I was levitating. I was so light. It was like I took a 200-pound backpack off the back of my shoulders and I was clear. I was clear and I felt healed. And it was like I got back hitting the pavement running, but then you got back into society and then you got all the same aggravations that can pull you back into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a daily practice for me till this day. I wake up with a morning mantra. Being blessed to be alive. I'm grateful. I wish world peace and all that. And I have a regime every morning. I have my yerba mate. I sit outside in the backyard. I have an ice tub. I live in the forest, so I ground my feet. I meditate and I do breath work. These are things that keep me connected to the spiritual side. Because if I don't have these things, you'll get drifted off into the so-called real world.
Yeah. And I just, while you're talking, it just seems to me that's the vision of your power, right? And so interesting because your first thought is your vision of your power is how hard you can fight.
Yeah.
And really that just feels like you just upped your power.
Yeah.
By tapping into that stuff and doing the practice every day. Wow, you've given me lots of inspiration. I'm like, okay, how am I going to mix up my morning practice? So now, how are you helping other people? Because you've started doing some of these spiritual retreats for men. So what does that look like for you? And how have you, what you've learned to, I guess, help other people really find their true power?
So what it had brought me, I had gone back again for another year for a little, pretty much, I almost was like a little tune-up. Every year I go for a little tune-up into the jungle and then continue my daily practices of what keeps me aligned with the spirit. But I've always been helping people through my gym, and I've always been a spiritual fighter as well. People think, oh, this guy's got diamonds in his teeth. He's on movies. He's a fighter. And they come to my gym and I'm doing things that they would never even think of, and it's like, wow, this is different, and I've always been that way. But then it got to a point where I'm just like, okay, well, I had to go all the way across the world. And, I thank the universe and God that I had the money to be able to do it. Not everybody has the money to go to Peru or go to Costa Rica and pay for a retreat and then flights and all that. It can be costly. So I'm like, this is something I can do here. And I'm going all the way to one of the biggest rainforests in the world, jungles over there. We live in it. We have the ancient trees. We have everything we need to heal here. And I'm thinking, okay, so my brain started thinking, and I got into some sort of like pickle, meaning I was him and haw about, should I do it this night? Maybe. And I have this house. So I live in the Sunshine Coast, and then I live in Amor, BC, and I have my businesses over here in Amor, BC. And we built another house over there with my in-laws. We have a nice communal thing. We all take care of each other. My mom, my son, all our dogs, my sister-in-law, my in-laws. We have a beautiful property with a farm and chickens and just a phenomenal place. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to sell my place in town. And, this is my 18-year investment. I might think about retiring maybe and just focus on my wife and son and kind of it. Well, universe always tells me, no, you're not. You're not ready yet, buddy. And it's like, the house I have here is beautiful and it's right in nature and it's on a half acre and it's lakes 5 minutes from here in the ocean. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put up for sale, and nobody's buying it. And it was like, people come in, they're just not buying it. And I'm like, there's no other house like it's private as mine. And they couldn't believe this. And then the market started changing. And when everything going on in the world, it started changing. I'm like, oh God, I have to figure something out here because I can't carry both places. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do here? And it was like, this was the time where I had to reinvent and refocus myself. So I just thought, okay, universe, come to me and tell me I'm working my butt off every day, but I'm not making enough to cover everything. So what I'm going to do, give me an option where I can make some passive income. And I'm sitting here, and as I'm sitting here, one day I just said, I looked at my feet, and below my feet, I have a huge house, and I'm the only person in here, and I'm selling it. And I'm like, I can't sell it now. I'm thinking, well, passive income's been here the whole time. It's below me. So I put a Zen-like Buddhist Airbnb in the basement and made it like more like a retreat for a bed and breakfast. And I started that out. And I'm like, whoa, well, that took off some of the weight of the stress. And I'm like, I'm actually enjoying this. I'm meeting new people. They're coming here. I don't just put it for anybody. I make sure I interview them first, and they come here, and people who come here want to enjoy the nature. And I meet these people, and I go, you never know who you can meet, whose life I can change or they can change my life. And I started enjoying this. And I said, wow, this is kind of cool. And you know what? It took the stress off of paying the bills and stuff. And then I'm like, well, when I finally sell my house, I'm going to buy a big property and I'm going to do a retreat for the men, because I've always wanted to do this. And I'm thinking, well, why are you waiting for that when you have it right now? And it was just like, okay, why didn't I think of this? It had to come to like dire straits for me to figure it out. And it's like, I have a beautiful property right here. Yeah. And everything I needed. Why would I need to sell to redo something? And I was like,
we love to complicate things, don't we?
I know. What am I thinking? So it's like, so I finally did it. And then it's been such a success, and people can come here, and it's not a long trip to go and travel to another country.
Yeah.
I'm not doing any of the psychedelics because I've touched people without those before anyways, from my teachings and stuff. But I brought in a lot of the indigenous ways of from BC to South America to Africa, and I just take one of my trips over the years and what's resonated with me, and then my martial arts, and then my most importantly, it's my life experience. It's the things that molded me, the things that brought me out of the ashes is what my expertise is. So I can speak from experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how you've been so open, right? I love that. I'm all about the curious, creative, and connected, and you're doing all of those things and helping other people do that as well. And I mean, I just loved when you told me before we started recording, when you told me that one of your best friends was an 86, 87-year-old woman who was a medium.
Yeah.
And I just love that. Shouldn't we all be so lucky to have
Right? Oh man, I'm so lucky. Yeah.
to have that? But there's requires a level of openness on your part.
Yeah.
And can you just I wanted to start to wrap up, but
Mhm.
before we do, can you just tell me a little bit about her? Because I think that is just it's just so fabulous. One of my closest friends in my life was she if she was still alive today, she'd be in her 90s. And and that was just such a rich friendship. But can you just tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, her name's Carol. I met her when I was 18. She lived in Nanaimo at the time, and I didn't know she was a medium at the time either. My friend's brother was married to her daughter, so we kind of visited. We were on the island. I think we were kind of over there just partying or something. We went over to her house, and they introduced her, and she sat me in her kitchen, and she goes, Lance, what's wrong with your stomach? And I just had met her, and I said, I don't know. I don't think anything. She said, no, there's something wrong with your stomach. And I had an ulcer. And she says, you stress too much. And I just met this lady, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I said, and she goes, here, have some of this tea, and I want you, just to relax and know that everything's going to be okay. And I said, oh, thanks, Carol. What a sweet lady. And then I think we went through the weekend, and I got back home, and I told my friend, I said, hey, can I have Carol's number, man? And he's like, yeah. I said, you know she's a medium. And I think she was actually looking for a lost child at the time. So I didn't know anything about her, but she was pretty famous at the time. And then I called her up, and we just started talking, and we've been friends ever since I was 18. And I just took her out for lunch a month ago, and her health has been up and down. And I thought it was the last time I was in 2 years ago. She said, Lance, I'm going to the other side. This is the last time I'm going to speak to you. And I go, I love you, Carol. Can you just try to hang on? Lance, I don't want you anymore. All of a sudden, boom, she's back. And she goes, I don't know why I'm still here, Lance. I said, because I need you, Carol. I need you. Stay with me. And it's just that we touch base all the time. She's been my spiritual advisor my whole life, majority of my life. And I've always talked to her when I do big business deals, when I have any kind of issues, and she's always been that ear. And she's been that warrior on my side as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're soulmates for sure.
Yeah, I wonder what she was doing when you were being a gladiator.
Yeah, right. Back then, yeah, I don't know. She was definitely helping me out then for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So I've loved this chat. Is there anything, and I always ask our guests to leave us with some words of wisdom, but is there anything that we've missed that you think would be important for our listeners to know? And it could be, some words of wisdom you want to leave people with, thing that we haven't
Yeah,
talked about.
yeah. Well, I would like to mention my Fearless Way men's retreat. If you ever want to get a hold of me, it's go through my Instagram at Lance Gibson SR Senior. So at Lance Gibson SR, and you can DM me if you know somebody in need. I'm very grateful that I reached out to a couple of my successful businessmen, and I have a really good friend who owns Apollo Sheet Metal, and he has sponsored one individual for each one of my retreats for 6 retreats. his company stands behind men's mental health and helping out people in need. And I just solidified that with him last week, and he's a benefactor now. And he'll be supporting people in need in my retreats as well. So, hey, you know what? My dream is to have everybody supported through this, through successful businesses. And people can actually really they can't afford it, they can still come and get it sponsored by these companies. So Apollo Sheet Metal, I'm very grateful for. I think that to finish it off, I don't know if I had an epiphany the other day or an enlightenment, but I was just thinking about everything that's going on in the world. And it boggles my mind that we are so into what people their preferences, say their sexual preferences or how they want to look or things like that. Why are we judging? Can't we just love each other? Can't we just love each other? Where did it stop and where did it go wrong? Because it needs to change. Because we're constantly judging people for this. And I remember a time where you weren't judged for certain things. And it's like, it's gone backwards. And I just thought, it's just like, who cares as long as they're not hurting anybody, who cares what their preference is or what they want to do? It's just love them, And I don't know if that's a huge enlightenment, but I was sitting in the hot tub the other night, and I'm sitting in the forest thinking, and I said, doesn't anybody else get this? Because I just got it.
I just had this amazing conversation with a girlfriend who just lost her husband in December, the end of December. And just 2 days ago, she said to me, there is so much love in the world. I just can't believe it. Compared to 20 years ago, she said, there's so much love in the world. And she's been through a lot, right? Just lost her husband after 6 years of his illness.
Yeah.
And that was her perspective. And she's experienced a lot of different things. And it was just so beautiful. And just like your hot tub revelation, right? That's where we need to focus.
Yes.
And it's a choice. And you're in fear or you're in love. There's only two states as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. Yeah. And you got to be the light in the darkness, right? So you focus on what you want to focus on and what you want to attract, Yeah. And she's right. And that's when you think about it, there is a lot of love in the world. And they want us to believe there's not. There actually is. And that's what we want to focus on. That's what you want to resonate with.
Yeah, and you're helping people discover that. Thank you for giving that gift to people in our community. And also, I think through this podcast, right? You've taught so many people just on this podcast alone how to come out of adversity. And you can still be strong and be a fierce warrior in love. And that's so impactful, Lance. I'm almost moved to tears. It's so impactful. But like you said, it's like crying is good.
It sure is. It sure is. And I like to, because a lot of people get turned off in the fact when they say men's groups or men's mental health, and I totally get it. And that's why I created it, because I was turned off with it, because they want to make these alpha males that don't do this and that. No, I'm an alpha male that's compassionate, that cares about people. And people see the tough outside, so they're attracted to come to me. But I got a little trick up in my sleeve. I'm going to make you a compassionate, strong individual.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I'm sure people will feel it. If I'm feeling it, somebody else is feeling it. And if you're feeling it, put it in the comments and share. So Lance, thank you so much. I just loved our conversation. I'll put your Instagram in the show notes and anything else that's relevant for people, and just keep doing what you're doing. And thank you again.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you for joining me on the Miles to Zen podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, follow, share, or leave a comment so we can keep growing this community together. This podcast was created and produced by Shannon Miles Halliday with original music by Anna Vovziniak.